Sorry to say this, but someone has to. I know it's going to piss off a lot of people, but I think that the comic industry is dead. The reason I'm saying this is not just because of the sales, but you're looking at the demographics. Who are the people that enjoy making comics now? Who are the people that enjoy reading comics? Mostly boomers. Overwhelmingly so. Like, the audience is aging. Meanwhile, the young generation, they like reading manga. It doesn't necessarily have to come from Japan. It can be from Korea. It can even be from the United States. But people have moved away from the comic books and into the new aesthetics, the new stories that manga has to share. This is not my wish or desire. It's just an observation. I'm just reporting on what I'm seeing. Now, is it possible that maybe 30, 40 years down the line, a company or someone successful makes a comic book and it becomes a cultural phenomenon and maybe the American comic book industry gets to revitalize itself? Sure, but like right now, the trend is towards collapse. And the reason I'm saying this is because you can also notice the huge disconnect between the people that are making comic book IP, whether it's like the book format or movies or TV shows or whatever, versus the actual customer and what they're interested in buying. And the interesting thing is that at the peak of comic books, at the golden era of comic books, there was this lady which gave an interview at TED Talk, and I'm really upset that I don't remember her name. Like, maybe someone in the comment section can help me out. But basically, she said that she landed the job, like she was a good artist, and she landed the job at DC Comics. And she noticed that she's surrounded with men. Like, everyone else there was a man. She was the only woman. And it was, like a fish out of the water for her. It was a very weird experience. But she wanted to make it work because she liked the pay and it was a good job opportunity. So she really wanted to make good comics. And the thing that she did, and this is, by the way, before feminism, before any of that, the thing that she did was that she actually went to a gym. And she went to a gym because she wanted to learn boxing. The reason she wanted to do that was because she noticed that every single comic book, every single one, can boil down to the very essence, which is the fight between the superhero and the villain. Like, this is the most important aspect of a comic, to have the Joker trying to rob a bank and Batman stopping him, and in order to do so, Batman applies violence, right? So, like, every single comic book requires violence. Now, in order to represent that, she wanted to know how violence is like in the real world because she never got in a fight, right? She was a woman. She was a very well-behaved young lady when she grew up. So she never got into fights. And she wanted to know, how does it feel to punch something? How does the object that gets punched, how does physics work on it? Because, like, she needed to know this in order to draw. And she goes on and details her experience and basically says, like, how the object spins and whatever. And sometimes, like, in the comic book, she realized that it doesn't have to actually look like in the real world. It has to look cool. It has to look badass. Like, you don't have to do the realism. But, like, some objects, like, if you punch something, your fist can hurt. Like, that may actually be used as a story plot. But, the way the object actually, the force applied and the way the object is pushed backwards, like, that doesn't need to have realism. That just needs to look cool. So, like, she goes there and talks about, like, what she understood in order to make successful comics. And apparently she became a very successful author. And it was, I think, before feminism, as I mentioned. But, like, she actually tried to understand the market. Like, she didn't try to lecture the market and impose her will on the market. She was like, okay, what does the market want? And how can I provide it to them? And now you notice that the complete moving away from that mentality into, like, no, the market is wrong. The market is filled with toxic masculinity. And what we need to do is to push feminist stories, or at least stories that radiate female energy, the type of stories that women like to read. And again, unfortunately, the comic book industry in the West was predominantly aimed at young boys, teenage boys especially, because they like sex and violence. And so, like, most of the female characters, they're very plump, right? They got big asses, big tits, like Power Girl, like Wonder Woman, like they used to be very extremely feminine. And most of the focus was on the violence, the action, right? So, like, that was the thing that they catered to for decades, and they excelled at doing so. Meanwhile, Japan, that was making manga based out of romance, based off of discussing feelings and stuff, they have decades of catering to female audience. And so when the Americans have a product that's catering to a shonen demographic and they're like forcefully changing it to try to cater to women, well, you're not going to be able to compete against the manga. They're just better at you in every single way. And so what ends up happening is that they lose the guys and they don't attract women. And now the comic book industry is absolutely plummeting and they're dying. I mean, look at this shit, right? You're talking about Captain America. And instead of like focusing on the actions, on his actual powers, you know, like he's really good with throwing that shield, talk about his marksmanship ability or anything like that, you're basically talking about his feelings. It's like his superpower is his feelings, he feels empathy, let's discuss. It's like, this is not a telenovela. Like, if it was a telenovela and you were telling me that Abuelita's superpower is the feelings and she has a lot of empathy for the young girl that her son is marrying, but unfortunately she is very poor and she comes from a low background family, and despite the fact that Abuelita has empathy, she wants to look what's best for his son, so she wants him to marry the other woman that's a lot uglier, but she's from a prestigious family, and drama happens. You know, like, that's the type of story for a telenovela. Why the fuck do I care about the empathy of Captain America? This is not what I go for. You know, like it should be somewhere in the background. It's like watching Dragon Ball, and you're talking to me about the relationship between Chi-Chi and Goku. Like, that's nice to have. That's the seasoning, but like, it's not the meat of the thing. So like, if you as the director don't know why people go and watch Dragon Ball, then you're not going to have a successful product. I don't even need to watch it. Like, you're so disconnected that even talking about it, you don't even know what talking points to bring in order to get the audience interested. And then they're also saying the fact that they're very proud over the fact that this guy is the new Captain America, right? So I think in many ways, the victory has already happened, right? It's a victory. It's that full acceptance of Sam Wilson as Captain America, right? I mean, there's no acceptance because at this point I generally don't give a fuck. But why are you calling it a victory? Like, I understand, you know, if it's something that's worthwhile for the plot. It's like, okay, some plot happens and, you know, like Goku dies and now Piccolo is the father and he trains Goku. It's like, that's a plot thing, right? And it's like, oh, well, now everyone accepts Piccolo as the stepdad. If you were to make that talking point, it would be weird. It's like, why would it be a victory? Why do you care how the audience interprets your art? Like, the only thing you should care if they enjoy watching it. It doesn't matter for what reason. But the interesting thing is this obsession, right? Like, we have to pretend that this obsession in the comic book industry doesn't exist to race swap, gender swap characters in order to move away from the straight white male archetype. Like, it's an absolute obsession, a frenzy, I would say. Like, imagine if Japanese people would do that in their anime, like an obsession to remove all straight Japanese men from their anime. You'd rather, like, what the fuck is wrong with them? What is happening in their head? Like, no one is against you making other characters, right? Like Cyborg or Storm or Blade or any other character that is black, right? I know, but you're taking established character, existing IPs, and you're race swapping them. Not because the story needs it, not because the plot requires, but because everyone is doing it. Because pink capitalism, that's why. And so people move away from that because people don't really like when you're doing this tokenist behavior, and you're pretending that you're not. Like, seriously, imagine if Japan did this with Goku, right? Like, Goku is an iconic character, everyone knows who he is, and then all of a sudden Goku is like an American. It's like Wheeler from Captain Planet, or Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, right? Like he becomes incredibly Americanized. And you'd be wondering, like, what the fuck? Well, yeah, but, like, Goku passed on his mantle. Or, you know, you have, like, some plot reason on why it happens. Like, he made a wish on the Dragon Balls or some shit. It's like, what the fuck? You know, why is this happening? And then you see it all over the place. They're doing it with Naruto. Now Naruto is black, right? And it's not just any type of black. He's African-American black. Every other minor character from Naruto gets race swapped, gender swapped. Hinata becomes a man. You know, and you're like, well, what are they doing? Like, this is not for entertainment. Why are they doing this? And people will just feel that they're trying to manipulate them, right? It's like, well, the reason they're doing it is because they're trying to push their values on me while using the comic book characters as VTubers, as sock puppets. And so people aren't buying. They're not interested, right? Like, people get their education and their morality from the church, not from multi-million-dollar for-profit corporate entities. And this is why the comic book is failing, and this interview just shows that the director simply does not understand the audience anymore. Like, look, my advice is to understand that Donald Trump won, and you don't have to do this shit anymore, right? Stop talking about the empathy, the emotions of the characters, and tell me how he managed to train the last 5 years in the cold, harsh Siberian winter in order to be able to now face Red Skull. Like, that would actually be interesting. I'd be like, wow, he trained in the cold Siberian winter? I want to see that. You know, like, unironically, that would actually make for a good movie, because there's a lot of popular YouTube channels with people that actually do go in the forest or do go in the wilderness, and they're trying to survive against the harsh elements. And so, like, if you put that in a movie, people would like it. They would definitely watch it, right? Like, show some masculinity. Stop being such a pussy. Like, it's fine, you know, to have, like, movies that are catering to women and plug into the femininity or into what women like True Blood. What else do they watch? 50 Shades of Grey. You know, I'm not going to try to say that these movies shouldn't exist. Twilight. Right? Like, it's fine, you know, that's something for the women. But imagine if you actually go there and you're trying to push for, like, stoicism, masculinity, guns, violence, zombies, because we need to attract a male audience to watch these things. This is what you're doing with the comic books, by the way. I don't care about Captain America's feelings. Holy shit. Well, actually, I don't care about Captain America at all at this point. You had a decade to ruin him, so it will probably take at least 2 decades to get me interested again. But it's where we're at. I'll make sure that my son also grows up either with the Captain America of the old, or he grows up with manga and other things. Cause like I'm not giving this. Like, this is child abuse. Like, making your kid watch something like this made it after 2020. It's absolute child abuse. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.